Well, if it looks like I'll be able to complete this, what I'm reading from is Krishna Dharma's rendering of Ramayana, a British born devotee that has British English, so sometimes we have to look up words. And he's mostly following Valmiki Ramayana, but he adds a little spice here and there of other Ramayana messages that it's a little bewildering sometimes. But for the most part, it's Valmiki Ramayana. And it's he's a very good writer. The descriptions, you feel like you're there, the way he describes things. It's not a literal translation, but it's a literary rendering of. So where we ended up last time, we thought we were going to complete. Sita's been left in Valmiki, just outside Valmiki's ashram. Lakshman had the very, very, very difficult task of explaining to her what's happening next. She's in total disbelief. And she, naturally she's feeling sorrow and she's sobbing. And in the midst of all of that, she's recognizing destiny has come my way again. So that's where we ended. For those of you that didn't receive, just ask, who do you ask? You? He has two documents that give an explanation from different perspectives. One is from Padma Purana perspective. How did this happen? What's destiny for the goddess of fortune? She's not bound by karma. So, and then there's lessons embedded in this, because we're going to hear how Lakshmana is processing this quirk of destiny, or a language that Prabhupada used, a phrase, is reversals. You're going along, and next thing you know, you're going that way. You didn't do a U-turn, you're just going that way. And that happens in life sometimes, and how do you process that? Especially when your life is dedicated, at least, primarily dedicated, not perfectly dedicated, but dedicated to service to the personality of Godhead. And how does this happen? Or maybe somebody some great misfortune comes. I can think of a few of them without giving anecdotal things. And how did this happen? Good people, virtuous people, righteous people, very kind people, and suddenly, kaboom, calamity. How did that happen? And how do you process it? So here's a little lesson in how to process it. At least one option. If you're very fortunate, you can select this option. So Sumantra and Lakshmana are in the chariot, the royal chariot, heading back for Lanka, having left Sita in the care of Valmiki. Valmiki accepted. The sages that were out searching for firewood or items for the yajna, they saw Sita sobbing and sobbing. They didn't know who she was, but she looked like a celestial personality. So they quickly went back and told Valmiki, we don't know who she is, but give her shelter. So there was some discussion. Rupa Vilas was asking the question, what's the social structure for ashrams in the forest? What's the sociology? How does it work? And Well, Gopal and I were having some back and forth on this. In short, there's different categories of ashrams. Some of the ashrams are grahastha brahmanas. And grahastha brahmanas would have other grahastha brahmanas stay together, not just, renunciates. And in some cases, there were renunciates. They were just secluded. There was nobody else around by their own inclination. In some cases, there were renunciates. Like, let's just give an example. Narada Muni, he had a place. I mean, of course, he doesn't stay in one place because Daksha cursed him. But he had a place, at least at that time, when Kayadu stayed with him for 100 years in his ashram. No, it doesn't say specifically whether there's the ladies' section of ascetics over there and a men's section of ascetics, doesn't say. But she was accommodated. Or we don't hear, same with Sage Matanga in Ramayana, we don't hear, were there other ascetic ladies like the one that was there serving all of them, Shabari? But there, at least in this case, Valmiki there was a lady ascetic area, doesn't describe any details, but somewhere, and under kind of taking the shelter of Valmiki and the other sages that were with him, and apparently they're in the ascetic category, ascetic men, ascetic ladies, renounced men, renounced ladies. Doesn't give any details. So there's variety. That was a little bit of thoughts on what was the social structure in ashrams. There are different ashrams for different personalities with different moods of devotion and so forth. Okay, so now Lakshman and Sumantra, they're in the royal chariot heading back for Lanka, feeling really heavy-hearted, both of them. For some time, Lakshmana and Sumantra traveled in silence, thinking of Sita. Finally, as the chariot came out of the forest and onto the main road leading to Ayodhya, Lakshmana said, "O charioteer, how great must be Rama's grief that he has again separated from Sita. Truly, this is the effect of destiny. Fate is inexorable." Now, this kind of utterance or conception of unexpected things, Ram said it way back in Ayodhya Kanda, when this thing happened and all this turmoil and everybody's all upset, and Ram speaks saying, how could this be anything other than just it's fated to happen? Because Kaikeyi so many times said she not only felt affection for me like Bharata, but she also said she felt more affection for me than Bharata. And she was always so kind. And how did this happen? How did she become overcome? And that there was a cause, but he's just saying it's just destiny. And so what are you going to do when destiny comes? Just accept it. It's not that all things, when it's a whole discussion. The everything is fated doesn't mean the way that you live your life is just be a human punching bag, and anybody that comes along and punches you, they punch you and you say, punch me again, go right ahead, it's okay, it's just destiny. That's not the message. But there are some times when there's just nothing you can do. It's outside of you can't change the circumstance. You can fret over it, and you can obsess over it, and you could, etc., etc. You can get depressed over it, or just accept it, and then make your choices from that space or place of having accepted it. So that's, in this case, that's Lakshman's message. It is not astonishing that Ram, who could extirpate the entire celestial hosts, extirpate, I guess means annihilate, should have to submit to fate? It seems to me that Ram was more pained by banishing Sita than he was by his own exile, and even her abduction. Why did he submit to the cruel words of the citizens? What virtue did he acquire? Sumantra comforted Lakshmana. They take turns comforting each other. That's a friend. He then told him of a story he had heard long ago of the rishi, from the rishi Durvasa. Quote, "This sage once stayed at Vashishta's hermitage. O prince, at that time your father went there, and I drove his chariot. He," I guess that's his father, "inquired from Durvasa about the prospects for his sons. How long would they live and rule over the world?" Durvasa then narrated the following history. You know, it's a history within a history within a history within a history. Ramayana is filled with that. Lakshmana listened attentively as Sumantra repeated what he had heard from the rishi. Durvasa had described how, in ancient times, the Daityas had been conquered in battle by the gods. They had fled and sought shelter in the ashram of the powerful sage Bhrigu. Only the sage's wife had been present, and out of compassion, she let them hide in the ashram. When Vishnu, who was assisting the gods in their campaign against the Daityas, learned of this, he became angry with Bhrigu's wife and severed her head with his discus. Bhrigu had then returned and seen his wife slain by Vishnu. He immediately cursed Vishnu, saying, "As you have killed my innocent spouse, so you will take birth in the mortal world and meet with separation from your wife for many years," unquote. Sumantra concluded his story. As soon as he uttered the curse, Bhrigu became sorry, and he bowed at Vishnu's feet and worshipped him. However, Vishnu said, "O sage, for the good of the world, I shall accept this curse." Durvasa then went on to explain that although Ram would become the Lord of Ayodhya and rule over the earth for 11,000 years, he would be separated from Sita. Thus it has come to pass, O Lakshmana, for the words of the rishis can never fail. As Sumantra ended his story, the chariot approached Ayodhya. Entering the city, Lakshmana went at once to the royal court. He found Ram seated on his throne with his face downcast. Lakshmana fell at his feet and told him that Sita had been left at Valmiki's ashram. In a pained voice he said, "Do not grieve, O tiger among men. All gains end in loss. All elevations end in a fall. All union must end in separation, and life itself always ends in death. The wise, therefore, do not become attached to wives, sons, friends, or riches. You know this well, O Ram. Therefore take heart and shake off your sorrow. I mean, they're always like trying to lift each other's spirits and give transcendental knowledge, not just like pat, but transcendental shelter. That's a real friend. Lakshmana assured Ram that the disrepute among the people would now be destroyed by Ram's act of sending Sita away. Ram appeared encouraged by Lakshmana. He smiled and replied, "What you say is true, O hero. I shall take joy in the execution of my duties, for this is the path to everlasting happiness. Now let us rest for the night." Ram stood up and embraced his brother, and they retired to their quarters. Then there's a break. 12 years of Ram's rule went by. During that period, his dominion over the earth became firmly established, as all other monarchs paid him tribute. His brother Shatrughna slew the powerful demon named Lavana, and all other demonic elements were subdued. Ram then thought of performing an Ashvamedha sacrifice for the benefit of the world. Arrangements were made and invitations were sent out to all the kings of the earth, as well as to many great rishis. Valmiki was also invited, and he prepared himself to go to Ayodhya. 12 years. The two sons of Sita are now 12. About thereabouts. While in Valmiki's ashram, Sita had given birth to twin sons named Lava and Kusha. The boys had been lovingly raised by Valmiki as if they were his own sons. Despite never having seen their father, they had flourished in Valmiki's ashram and grown into powerful youths. Valmiki had taught them all Vedic knowledge and had also taught them Ram's story, which they became expert in reciting. As the time for Ram's sacrifice approached, Valmiki took both Lava and Kusha, as well as hundreds of his other disciples, and went to Ayodhya. He entered the sacrificial arena like the sun, surrounded by glowing planets. As soon as Ram saw him, he immediately ordered that he be worshipped and offered a place of honor in the sacrifice. After he had been shown to his quarters, Valmiki said to Lava and Kusha, "Tomorrow, you two should go among the Brahmins here and sing the Ramayana. Go also to Ram's palace and sing this most holy narration where the king will hear it. If Ram calls you before him, then you should recite to him the poem in its entirety. Sing it to the best of your ability and with a pure heart. Do not let your minds be captivated by the opulence and wealth that you see. If Ram should ask you whose sons you are, you should tell him that you are two disciples of Valmiki." The two humble and obedient boys replied, "We shall do exactly as you ask, O Lord." The boys were eager to meet Ram. As well as knowing the Ramayana by heart, they had heard their mother speak many times about Ram, and although they had come to see Valmiki as their father, they knew they were Ram's actual sons. Looking forward to meeting Ram the next day, they lay down happily for sleep by the side of the sage. 2 hours before sunrise, the boys rose and performed their ablutions. After saying their morning prayers, they made their way to the assembly of Brahmins and began to sing the Ramayana. As they sang, they expertly played upon lutes, and the music they produced stole the heart and captivated the mind. The Brahmin sages were enthralled, and they repeatedly applauded the boys. Excellent, well done. We are all amazed by this magnificent poem. Its exquisite music and meter are without compare. It is replete with the 9 sentiments, which are love, pathos, mirth, heroism, terror, wrath, disgust, wonder, and serenity. Rupa Goswami expanded the 9 to 12, but that's another. The boys' expert singing creates a vivid picture of the story they are telling, and we feel as if we are seeing it actually happen. The sages gazed in wonder at the twins. They both looked like Ram himself and were endowed with many auspicious marks. After making various gifts to the boys, the Brahmin said, "This song, composed by Valmiki, will be sung by poets throughout all the ages. It is conducive to long life, begets prosperity, invokes all good fortune, and ravishes the ear and mind of the hearer. Go now, dear boys, and recite it for the pleasure of Ram himself." The twins offered their obeisances to the sages and went at once to the palace compound, where they again began to sing. Hearing them from within the palace, Ram immediately ordered that they be brought in. They were offered golden seats within the royal court, and Ram said to them, "O ascetics, we have heard your excellent singing. Please recite your poem here for the pleasure of the Brahmins in this court, as well as my brothers and myself. I think there is no song its equal, nor indeed singers such as yourselves." Ram looked carefully at the 2 boys. He turned to Lakshman and said, "Although dressed as ascetics, these 2 appear like rulers of the earth. Surely they are from royal stock, or even have some divine origin. Let us listen now as they repeat their wonderful poem." The entire royal assembly sat enchanted while the boys sang. As evening approached and they completed their recitation, Ram said, "Wonderful, wonderful. Oh, boys, we desire to know who you are and from where you have come. I wish to bestow upon you gold and other gifts in abundance." The boys replied that they were Valmiki's disciples. Remembering the Rishi's instructions, they politely declined Ram's offer of wealth and asked his permission that they be allowed to return to Valmiki. Ram agreed, and the boys departed, leaving the assembly astonished and entranced by what they had heard. After they had gone, Ram dismissed the assembly and sat alone. Hearing his sons recite his life story had made him think of Sita. He longed to see her again, and it was ordained by Scripture that a king should perform sacrifice with his wife. It had been 12 years since Sita's departure, and he had not seen her since. His heart had often ached with her separation, but he wanted to make absolutely certain that the people had no cause at all to criticize him. Feeling that this had now been achieved, Ram desired to bring Sita to the sacrifice. He summoned Bhadra and said, "Please have the venerable sage Valmiki informed that I would like him to fetch Sita. Let both he and the queen herself take oath before the assembly that she has always remained pure. I do not want any further obloquy, obloquy. That's, I guess, it's gossip about myself or Sita circulating in the kingdom." Bhadra, surprised and gladdened by Ram's request, replied, "It shall be done as you wish, my lord." Envoys left at once and told Valmiki of Ram's desire. The sage immediately made arrangement for Sita to be brought from the hermitage. He told the messengers that she would be present the following day, and they left to inform Ram. The next morning, Ram addressed the royal court. Today, the noble Sita will come to the sacrifice. There she will take oath as to her purity. Supported by the great sage Valmiki, who has given her shelter for these last 12 years. I desire that all the kings and sages hear this testimony. Indeed, let many people as may desire be present. It's full of twists and turns, huh? What's next? The assembly cheered Ram, and everyone began to make their way to the sacrificial arena outside the city. All of them longed to see Ram and Sita united again. Although they did not question Ram's judgment, it had broken their hearts when he had sent the queen away. For 12 years, they had prayed for this day when she might return. Gradually, the vast arena filled up with royalty and rishis. All the greatest sages of the world came there. Narada, Parvat, Vashishta, Vamadev, Kashyapa, Vishvamitra, Durvasa, Chavana, and hundreds more were seen there. Representatives of the Rakshasas, as well as many Vanaras, Gandharvas, and other celestials arrived. In the sky the gods assembled, and Ram took his place in the arena. Wow, it's pretty dramatic. Valmiki then made his way into the center of the arena, followed by Sita. She was dressed in an ochre colored, what's O-C-R-E? Is that reddish? O-C-R-E. O-C-H-R-E. What color is it? Huh?
I think green.
Green? Say it again, loud. Light yellow brown. Okay. Earthen color. Okay. Appropriate. She was dressed in an ochre-colored sari, and her golden earrings glistened in the sunshine as she walked with her head down. Although she thought only of Ram within her heart out of fear, she did not look up at him. She folded her palms in respect and stood silently before her husband. Seeing the queen with downcast expression, the assembly was agitated and gave out various cries. Some were sorrowful, some praised Ram, and others praised Sita. When everyone finally settled down, Valmiki began to speak. "O son of Dasarath, out of fear of criticism, this pious Sita of righteous conduct was left by you near my hermitage. She will now testify to you as to her unfailing purity. I, too, can swear that this chaste lady is sinless. I do not remember ever having spoken an untruth. O Ram, for sure that Sita is entirely free from wicked conduct of any kind. Know for sure. Know also that the two boys who recited Ramayana to you are certainly both your sons. I have practiced penance for many thousands of years, and if my words are false, then may I not obtain the fruit of that asceticism. Knowing that Sita was innocent, I accepted her into my ashram. She is devoted to you only, O Raghava, and will never sway from you under any circumstances." Ram smiled. "It is exactly as you say, O Brahman. I also know Sita to be without blame. This was previously established by even the gods, and thus I did not allow her to enter my house. Only due to public censure, and thus did I allow her to enter my house. Only due to public censure did I send her away again, Even though I never doubted her innocence, please forgive me. I hereby proclaim my love for the chaste Sita. I also accept these two boys, Love and Kush, as my sons. Let her now take oath before the assembly and establish her purity once and for all. Sita slowly looked up at her husband, who gazed at her with affection. She glanced around the assembly, as well as many kings and rishis. She saw all classes of celestials standing there. Adityas, Vasus, Rudras, Satyas, Vishvadevs, Nagas, and numerous others. Above the assembly, on his swan carrier, sat Brahma, the universal creator. Surrounded by all the principal gods, everyone waited silently for Sita to speak. Just a comment. This is a Sadaputta comment. Some of you know who Sadaputta is, some of you may not. Prabhupada disciple who was brilliant. I mean, I'll say it this way. In my lifetime, I've never had the association of someone who I would consider to be a genius other than him. He's a very exceptional person. And one of the things that I heard him in some lectures say, prior to Kali Yuga, celestial beings had the power and would regularly come to Earth, and they could be seen by Earth people. They particularly would come when there was a yajna, but they could come in other circumstances because they have powers by which they can come and be seen. Then he used this word. However, when Kali Yuga came, the Earth planet was quarantined. That's the word he used so many years ago. It's an appropriate word. Like, you don't go there because it's too toxic. Kali Yuga is toxic. But in previous times, it's a common understanding from the Vedic perspective that demigods would come as they wish. They could hover in the sky, as apparently in this case, or they could do what they wanted. So that Brahma's there, witnessing. Surrounded by all the principal gods, everyone waited silently for Sita to speak, with her hands folded in front of her face. Sita looked down again and said in a tremulous voice, quote, "If I have never even thought about anyone other than Ram, then let the earth goddess grant me shelter. As I worship only Ram in mind, speech, and action, so may the earth give me space. If I have truthfully said that I know only Ram as my Lord, let the earth receive me now." Sita felt that she had become a problem for Ram. Despite having been declared pure by even the ever-truthful gods, still the doubts remained. It seemed as if she was present, as long as she was present there would be those who would find fault with Ram. She would have given up her life the very day she had been sent away to the forest if she had not been pregnant with Ram's sons. Now the boys were old enough to join their father in the city. It was time for her to depart. Ram's reputation could not be sullied, even by the slightest doubt, and only her departure could ensure that. Paragraph. As Sita finished speaking, the ground next to her opened up, and a celestial throne rose up. That brilliant, bejeweled seat was borne on the heads of 4 great Naga snakes. Sitting on it was Bhumi, the earth goddess, glowing with her divine effulgence. She rose up and held out her hand to Sita with gentle words of welcome. Sita got onto the throne and sat next to Bhumi. Suddenly, a great shower of fragrant flowers fell from the sky and covered Sita. The gods loudly praised Sita, and, as all the kings and rishis looked on in amazement, the throne slowly re-entered the earth. Everyone glorified Sita for her incomparable devotion and chastity to Ram. Ram himself cried out as Sita disappeared into the earth, which again closed as the throne entered within. He leaned on the side of his seat and wept in grief. Wringing his hands in despair, he said, "Upon seeing Sita enter the earth, I am afflicted with a sorrow greater than I have ever known before. How can I tolerate it? How shall I allow Sita to be taken by the earth? When she was stolen by Ravana, I crossed the vast ocean on foot to recover her. I shall again bring her back, or go with her for good." Ram looked down at the earth. Becoming angry, he said, "O goddess, you should return Sita to me, or you will feel my wrath. Sita was formerly brought out from your womb, thus you are my mother-in-law. Therefore, be kind to me and return Sita, or else grant space to me also. I will stay with Sita wherever she is gone, whether it be in heaven or the nether regions. O earth goddess, hear my words, or else I shall destroy you with my mountains and with all your mountains and forests." Ram's eyes blazed in anger as he stood up, reaching for the bow by his side. Brahma spoke from his position above the sacrifice. "O Ram, Lord of all the worlds, do not be grieved. Remember your identity as Vishnu. By your own arrangement, this separation from Sita has been ordained. The pure and noble daughter of Janaka has gone to celestial realms, where you will see her again without a doubt. O Lord, listen now as your sons finish the narration of Ramayana. They will recite to you all of your future acts, culminating in your return to your spiritual abode. Everything is happening according to your will, O Ram. Do not therefore destroy the world." Ram was pacified by Brahma's speech, and he sat down again. Seeing him peaceful, the gods departed for the heavens. As evening fell, the assembly dispersed, and Ram went sorrowfully back to his palace, taking his two sons with him. The following morning, Ram had Lava and Kush sing the remaining portion of Ramayana, dealing with future events. Sitting amid his ministers and the court Brahmins, Ram listened as the two boys recited the beautiful poetry they had heard from Valmiki. They briefly described the period of Ram's rule over the earth, a time of unparalleled peace and opulence. Their narration was concluded with a description of how Ram and his brothers would finally leave the world. And then there's another break in the writing. We have 4 pages remaining. After Sita's departure from the world, Ram often thought of her. He could not even think of taking another wife, and he had an exquisite gold image of Sita made by expert artisans. That statue sat next to him in the royal court and at sacrifices, serving as the queen. A period of 11,000 years passed with Ram ruling the world, assisted by his 3 brothers. He performed 10,000 great sacrifices, and the earth enjoyed unprecedented opulence. All creatures were happy, and everything functioned in accordance with the arrangements of the Supreme Lord. Religion was firmly established, and everyone led pious lives. One day, toward the end of his rule, Ram was visited by an unusual ascetic who glowed with a divine radiance. That Brahmin, having been worshipped by Ram, introduced himself as a messenger of Brahma. He asked for a private audience with Ram, saying, "O Emperor, no one should hear the words that pass between us. If anyone should interrupt us, then they must be killed by you." This is the problem, because Lakshman interrupts. Agreeing to this request from the Brahmin, Ram brought him into his personal quarters. He told Lakshmana to stand outside and to prevent anyone from entering, explaining to him what the ascetic had said. When they were alone, the ascetic said to Ram, "O Lord, you should know that I am death. Brahma has asked me to come here and inform you that the time allotted for your earthly pastimes is drawing to a close. You have achieved all that you desired to achieve. Now, if it so pleases you, you may return to your own eternal abode." Death described to Ram some of his former incarnations in the material world, concluding by saying, "O Ram, you are the eternal supreme being. You appear in the world to establish religion and destroy the demons. The time set by yourself for this incarnation is now almost over. Be pleased, then, to resume your place as the Lord and protector of the gods." Ram laughingly replied, "O destroyer of all, welcome is your visit here. Surely your words fill me with pleasure. It is indeed time for my departure. Please return to Brahma and tell him that I and my brothers shall leave within a short time." As Ram spoke with death, the great mystic Durvasa came to the city. Desiring to see Ram, he was shown into the palace, where he was met by Lakshmana. He asked for an audience with Ram, but Lakshman told him that Ram was busy at that time. Immediately blazing up with anger, Durvasa said, "I will not be kept waiting. Go at once, O son of Sumitra, and inform Ram of my presence. Otherwise, know that I shall curse you, your brothers, the territory, and all your descendants. Indeed, my anger is already difficult to contain." I figured Durvasa was going to show up. Seeing the irascible sage preparing to utter a curse, Lakshman bowed to him and quickly went to Ram's quarters, thinking, "Let there be only my death rather than that of all my kinsmen." He entered the room where he saw Ram speaking with death. When Ram heard that Durvasa was waiting, he immediately came out to greet him. Touching the Rishi's feet, he asked, "What shall I do to please you, O Great One?" Durvasa replied that he had been fasting for 1,000 years and desired to take food that day and break his fast. "Kindly bring me cooked foods, O Ram, so that I may end my long penance." Ram had Durvasa seated comfortably in the palace, and he personally served him with varieties of excellent food. After the sage had left, and death had also departed, Lakshman said to Ram, "I must now die, dear brother, for that was the promise you made to death. Punish me in accord with your word to that deity." Remembering his discussion with death, Ram felt shocked. Speechless with grief, as he thought of separation from Lakshman, he shed tears and stood gazing at his beloved brother. How could he be killed? Lakshman folded his palms and said, "Do not feel sorrow for me, O gracious one. Time is all-powerful. Bound by our former acts, we must all come under death's sway, O king. Keep your promise without fear. Those men who break their promises will go to hell." Ram sat down on his throne, struck with sorrow. He called for his ministers and informed them of what had taken place. Vashishta then said, "O Ram, all this was foreseen by me. The time for the conclusion of your pastimes has arrived. You should abandon Lakshman now. Do not give up your promise, for if you do, then righteousness in this world will perish. Along with righteousness, all beings will also be destroyed. Therefore, O lion among men, be separated from Lakshman today." Ram looked at Lakshman. "I leave you, O son of Sumitra. Let not virtue suffer. Desertion and slaying are considered equal according to the wise. Therefore, I abandon you today." Lakshman prostrated himself before Ram with tears in his eyes. He then stood up and left the palace, going directly to the forest. Reaching the banks of the Sarayu, he sat down in meditation, preparing to observe the Praya vow of fasting till death. With his eyes half closed, he suspended his breathing and entered a deep trance. As he sat absorbed in thought of the Supreme, Indra came there, invisible to all, and took him away to the heavens. Thus it appeared to all men that Lakshman had died. Hearing of this, Ram was overcome by grief. He felt that he could not remain on earth any longer. Crying it out in pain, he said, "I shall confer the kingdom on Bharat. This very day I will follow the path taken by Lakshman." Bharat replied, "How can I think of ruling the world in your absence, O Ram? Along with Shatrughna we shall leave together. Bestow the kingdom upon your two sons." Vashishta agreed with Bharat. "This is proper, O Ram. The time fixed by yourself for your rule has all but ended. Surely you must now depart, taking your brothers who are all a part of yourself." Knowing this, the people have become afflicted with sorrow. They are lying prostrate on the ground, mortified at the thought of losing you. You know, our difficulties are nothing compared to nothing. Ram was upset to hear of the citizens' unhappiness. He called for their chief representatives and said, "What should I do to assuage your grief? I must now leave this world." Guess what? They want to go with him. The citizens begged Ram to take them all with him. "Wherever you are going, O Lord, be it the forest, mountains, ocean, heaven, or even hell, we desire to follow you. If it please you, let us accompany you." Ram assented. "It shall be so." He then arranged for his sons to be coronated. Lava and Kush could hardly face the prospect of separation from their father. They loudly lamented and fell to the earth. When they heard that Ram was departing, Ram gently raised them and said, "Dear sons, you must remain on earth to carry on a righteous rule. Establish your capitals in the northern and southern territories. Always think of me. Lead the people with justice and compassion. Surely we will be united again in the future." Lava and Kush tightly embraced their father and then left Ayodhya for their respective kingdoms, which became known as Kushavati and Shravasti, taking vast amounts of wealth with them. After this, Ram dressed himself in pure white silks and prepared to leave Ayodhya. The next morning, he had Brahmins take his sacred fire from the palace and lead the way toward the forest. With Vashishta reciting hymns from the Samaveda, Ram went slowly out of the city, seated on a great golden chariot. Those with divine sight could see by his two sides the goddess Lakshmi and Bhumi. Ahead of him went the personified power of resolution, while all around him were his weapons in human forms. Ram was followed by the Vedas in the form of Brahmins, as well as the goddess Gayatri and the personified forms of Omkar, the divine syllables always meditated upon by great yogis. All the female inhabitants of the palace then followed, accompanied by Bharata and Shatrughna. Crowds of ascetics, chanting Vedic mantras, came at the head of the citizens, who were grouped according to their respective classes. Hundreds of thousands of Vanaras, Rakshasas, and bears also followed behind. Everyone left Ayodhya to go with Ram. Even the animals and birds left the city and went with the procession. No living creature of any kind remained in Ayodhya, where love and Kush going to rule. And they all made their way westward to the banks of the Sarayu. As they traveled, Ram met one last time with Hanuman to say his farewells. Embracing the monkey, he said, "You have made your decision to remain here on earth, so do not let your words become false." Hanuman replied, "Surely I shall always be in your presence simply by hearing of your glories, O Lord. So long as your divine narration circulates this world, so I shall remain." Ram also asked two other Vanaras, Minda and Dvidvida, to stay behind, as well as the king of the bears, Jambavan. They all bowed before Ram, saying, "So be it." Meeting with Vibhishan, Ram said to him, "O best of the Rakshasas, you should stay in the world and rule over your people. As long as the sun and moon stay in the heavens, so will your rule last. Always worship Vishnu in his form of Jagannath, the presiding deity of the Ikshvakus." Accepting that order, Vibhishan prostrated himself before Ram and then left for Lanka. Followed by his vast entourage, Ram traveled upriver to the point where it joined the Ganges, then went along the course of that holy river until he reached the foot of the mountain from where it emanated. At that place where the path to heaven could be found, millions of divine chariots appeared. All the gods, headed by Brahma, were visible. Celestial music played by the Gandharvas could be heard, and showers of flowers fell from the skies. It was seen that Vishnu appeared in the sky on the back of Garuda. Within the sight of all, the being praised by the gods, Ram and his two brothers, entered Vishnu's form. This is a different narration than I've heard. Anyway, is this how Valmiki Ramayana ends?
That's a variation.
Yeah, they entered the river. Anyway, Hare Krishna. The gods saw them rising up on celestial chariots towards Ram's undecaying abode in the spiritual world. It seemed to those celestials that the very city of Ayodhya went with Ram. Astonished by this unprecedented sight, Brahma and the gods left for their own abodes, praising Ram. Within their hearts, his pastimes were complete. Jai Shri Ram, the end. We've been saying multiple times, there's this blend, and sometimes more prominent is the earth, the human-ness, sometimes the divine-ness, and sometimes both simultaneously. And so that the story keeps moving and moving and moving. Carrying one's emotions like unexpectedly. What to speak of those who become fixed in devotion to Ram, how their hearts are moved, but even those that aren't fixed in devotion to Ram, their hearts are moved. It's that kind of literature, transcendental literature. The net result is attraction from the worldly to the transcendental. And that, the worldly emotions may be stirred naturally because we have worldly emotions, we have worldly filters. But behind those worldly emotions, there's transcendental emotion that's being stirred, and that is the affinity for the personality of Godhead is awakened and becomes very prominent. It's very not just, interesting and charming. It is interesting and charming, but it's far more. Far more. It's transcendental literature. Going back to the way that Madhvacharya explains, I like this. I mentioned it once before. There's the Vedas are eternal, just as the Lord is eternal. The soul is eternal. So sometimes the Lord manifests himself and performs pastimes, and sometimes the sound vibration of the Vedas manifests in this world, but it's actually eternal. So Valmiki wrote down, but the sound vibration is eternal. And those that have the good fortune of hearing or vibrating or remembering connect with the eternal. According to Madhvacharya's explanation, Brahma has 1 million verses, and he taught those 1 million verses to Narada. Narada expressed a synopsis in the beginning of Valmiki Ramayana to Valmiki, and Valmiki expanded into the number of verses in his Ramayana. But the original is much bigger, and the original is eternal. And personality like Valmiki had the capacity to experience, not just clairvoyantly guess or understand, but experience pastimes that hadn't happened yet. The concluding pastimes of Ram, which Ram heard, how his pastimes would end. There's a nice teaching in Brahma Samhita that relates to this topic, where Brahma says in one of his prayers, that for those who are engaged in karma, from Indra down to the Indra Gop germ, they're all given their allotted karma by just means. And there's another category, those that are devoted to the Supreme Lord. And then what happens in the lives of those who are devoted to the Supreme Lord is the Lord Govinda uproots from the very root of their implication in material existence, their events in those persons' lives. So Sita is not in that category. She's not in either category. Or Lakshman is not in either category, and Ram's not in either category. But they're playing the part as if, and so they're responding as if, with a kind of attachment. See, Sita's attachment to Ram, that's otherworldly. If I have violated, let me have a place on earth, and I've not violated, then that the earth receive me back again. With the thought that my presence is going to bring a bad name to Ram. So knowing the heart of her husband, and being the kind of unmotivated personality as she was, she accepted. Of course, it's a transcendental pastime. Who's going to see the earth open up and a big celestial seat appear from the earth, and the goddess Bhumi, radiant like the sun, sitting next to her, invite her to come, and so it's otherworldly. But it's principle based. So back to this topic I wanted to spend some time with, because it came up in yesterday evening's discussion. Maybe some of you saw it or heard it. It was a summary of Brahma's prayers. When after Brahma stole the calves and cowherd boys, and he had this revelation from Krishna that his opulences are unlimited. There's details. And then he offers his prayers. And one of those prayers has to do with this topic of destiny. And destiny is just dismissed by the power of bhakti. No, then if destiny is dismissed by the power of bhakti, then why do bad things happen? It's just a different set of, it's the internal energy for the life of those who are dedicated to the Supreme, where the vestiges of involvement in matter are taken away to the very root. That's the explanation in Brahma Samhita and in Brahma's prayers as well. The misfortune comes in the life of a devotee to uproot any residual trace of tendency there is for trying to be an enjoyer of the temporary. And we've been hearing, I'll end with this. I've been hearing for about 2.5 months, working towards 3 months, in Uddhava Gita, where there's the same message from Krishna to Uddhava, because Uddhava wants that question addressed, so he gets it. And as long as there's affinity for being the enjoyer of the temporary, our relationship with Bhagavan is blocked. We can't, it's there, but it's blocked. And we make some steps forward, and then it's again, we're back to, not having a clear relationship because of that affinity. So sometimes, out of kindness, misfortune comes to uproot that affinity. And it doesn't feel good when it happens. It hurts. We discussed this twice so far. There's feelings of sorrow or feelings of hurt or something. But then, because that's natural. And then there's the transcendental position of consciousness that we have real shelter. The obstacle's removed, then the real shelter is all that remains. And if it happens strongly and consistently, we're left with Krishna alone. Avyavachari bhakti, undivided devotion. So it doesn't have to be with misfortune. It can be just straightforward devotion. But we're in the world of duality, and sometimes there's a big thunderstorm like it was the other day, and sometimes it's 100 degrees, and sometimes it's comfortable, and sometimes it's sometimes. And it's just part of the nature of the place. It's sometimes and sometimes. And if we're actually connected and transcendentally connected to the personality of God with a desire to be in service to Him, that's our ballast. That's what carries us through the good times and the bad times and everything else. That's the lesson of transcendental life. And cultivating it through sadhana bhakti, we gradually can reach that position. And doing what we're doing is exactly the right thing. I spent a good part of Nirjala Ekadasi preparing for a class that I plan to give for the New Jersey congregation on July 4th evening. Just sharing, but it's related to what I just said. The July 4th weekend, we've been in Chicago, we've been regularly, like for 15, 20 years, whatever, conducting a festival called the Festival of the Holy Name. So the focus this time is, specific. Rupa Goswami, our great Acharya, and his giving us entrance into the holy name, the pure holy name, the chanting of the pure holy name, or pure chanting of the holy name. So I was asked, just sharing, by the president of our temple, in one of our temples in New Jersey, can I give a Sunday class on that same Sunday? We're having our Festival of the Holy Name. So I figured out how to do it. And the topic, so I'm just sharing, I just spent the whole day, well, half the day, on, the title is Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's a nice story, because hearing the topics of Krishna is everything, or hearing the topics of Lord Ramachandra is everything. So what's the story? Sanatan Goswami, you all know who is Sanatan Goswami, right? Do you know who is Sanatan Goswami? No, this young boy here in the black t-shirt. Yeah, that you. Do you know who is Sanatan Goswami? Okay, great. So Sanatan Goswami, when he was a small boy, he had a dream. And in his dream, a Brahmin came and gave him as a gift Srimad Bhagavatam. Then it didn't look like it looks like today, that a bound volume with hardcover and everything. Looked like at that time. And he woke up. And he was kind of puzzled by the dream. That very day, the same Brahmin who appeared in his dream came and gave him a Srimad Bhagavatam. So he just absorbed himself in reading Srimad Bhagavatam from childhood. And so when he became whatever it was, prime minister or chief minister in the government of Nawab Hussain Shah, his whole life was based upon Krishna. He had wealth. So in their estate, he just built a Vrindavan. There's Govardhan Hill, and there's the river Jamuna, and temples and of Krishna, and it was because his mind was absorbed in Krishna. And when he came in Lord Chaitanya's association, he also instructed him, absorb yourself in Srimad Bhagavatam. And so he did. It wasn't a difficult assignment. He was already absorbed, but profoundly absorbed. And so his writings were based upon the writings or the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. And in one of his writings, he has a whole series of verses that are just describing the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. So his, from childhood, because of his faith, and in part of it, he says in these prayers, Krishna Stavamala, I believe is the title of the book, one of his writings. Stava, it's like, mala, a whole string of prayers and glorifications of Krishna. So one is the glorification of the Bhagavatam, saying it's Krishna himself. The Bhagavatam is Krishna himself. Just like the reading of Ramayana is Ram himself. We're associating with the Lord himself. Although here we are in, Kali Yuga, dealing with what we're dealing with. All the stuff we know very well what we're dealing with. Each of us in our own different version of, the modern circumstances of life. But it's meant to carry us to transcendence. It's meant to cleanse affinity from the temporary and attachment to Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, because it's Krishna himself. So we may not understand everything. That's quite okay. We don't understand everything because we're not purified and not yet qualified, but hearing makes us qualified. And that's Vedic culture, where character is elevated just by hearing. That character is absent these days because there's another interest besides character. It's information rather than character. Application of wisdom is missing. Even having wisdom, what to speak of application. So this is a wonderful exercise. Let's see if there's some discussion. We have a portable microphone all ready for anybody that'd like to discuss something.
Dandavad Maharaj, first of all, thank you so much. It was so nice to hear Ramayana from you, and we are fortunate that the concluding happened here in St. Louis, and hope it's not concluded and continue reading Ramayana. It's just so enlivening, and thank you. Really can't express more than that. It was nice to hear from you reading. Thank you, Maharaj. Two things. Are you planning to do any further things with Ramayana?
Yes.
Okay.
The plan is, of course, everything is dependent upon what happens with the pandemic. And the Delta variant is going to determine yes or no. But the plan is to continue something that I already did with the Chinese devotees, but to do it for the English-speaking devotees. Personalities of Ramayana, rather than the Leela, just focus on something like 18 personalities. And sometimes where they're not big roles, something where there's 2 or 3 that are similar. And just like zoom in on the personality and their role in Ramayana. And then naturally it leads into something like, whole long session on Vishwamitra Muni, like where he was and what he became.
Exciting. Thank you, Maharaj.
And Shapari, and there's some of our favorite personalities, where they came from and what they became, and their role. Kaikei and Mantra, and let's just focus on personalities. Just a spotlight. And back out, and then back in again, and back out. So I'm planning to do that twice this year, depending upon the pandemic.
Thank you, Maharaj. I have one question, but before that, I also want to thank you for helping me read Ramayana. It's because of you I was able to get much more deeper into Ramayana.
I kept asking every time questions, and I would send them to Lal Gopal and to 2 other devotees that like Ramayana, and they would research and come up with, the questions came from the audience. So if you have questions, ask them. Challenging ones are fine. Difficult to answer ones are fine.
Maharaj, my question was, you mentioned about Satyaputta Prabhu saying that this Kali Yuga is really bad, therefore the Devatas
Quarantine,
they would not come here. I'm just trying to understand how we see a different statement where it says Kali Yuga is so very fortunate, where the Devatas would like to take birth in Kali Yuga, and then quickly get into the process of bhakti and return back to the spiritual world. How do we see this both? Whereas Hanuman would also like to stay in this world, he didn't want to return back. So how do we connect this to?
Well, if you read in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, it's the picture of what Hanuman wanted is a little different than he wanted to stay. I mean, it's what's in Valmiki Ramayana, but in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, when he's visited by Narada Muni, he said, no. Ram took everybody back except me. And then when, let's go, the ones that are with the Lord always is the Pandavas. Oh, great, let's go. Yes, let's go. No, I'm just a monkey, I'll make a mess. So there's different perspectives on Hanuman's mood. And that's, Sanatana Goswami speaking or writing. But his wish to stay is to fulfill the mission of Ram, and that is sing the glories of Ram, not just for his pleasure, but for the purification of the world. Having full faith that singing the glories of Ram will purify the world, and he wanted to be in that. That was his mood, not just go with Ram, but purify the world and says service to Ram. And then that's Hanuman. Now it's the demigods on the one hand, and on the other hand, on the one hand, Kali Yuga is definitely very contaminated. But on the other hand, it's not particularly the age, but the situation in the heavenly planets, generally speaking, there's exceptions, but generally speaking, the opulence is so astounding that it's just indulging in the opulences. Burning up, it's just like going on vacation. When people go on vacation, they work, they have some savings, they go on vacation. When they go on vacation, they're not, it's enjoy. Go wherever you go for vacation, and you relax and have a nice time and sun and fun and whatever. And then you go back to work. So, generally speaking, in the heavenly planets, it's the opportunity for enjoyment is abundant, and that's what people are doing. So they're not eager for making progress to the final goal of life, although with their piety, the opportunity is there. The other is very strong. It's intoxicating. The enjoyment propensity is very strong in the heavenly realm. It's what people do when they go there. Now there's realms above heaven, and Janaloka, Maharloka, Tapaloka, Brahmaloka. But in heaven, the mood is enjoyment. So that's the reason that they may want to come to Earth, because it's not so nice here. But they're not when there's an infection in some place, you quarantine the place. Where there's an epidemic spreading in some place, you quarantine the place and the people that have the epidemic. That's how the earth during Kali Yuga is observed by the demigods. The other ages is not quarantined. That's the balance between those two. Anyone else? Yes. Shari, you give her the microphone.
I have a question, Maharaj. So we understand that some pastimes happens according to Lord's will. So I was wondering, Sage Brihu cursing Lord Vishnu, maybe one of that, but as for us, how to see that act? Also,
inspired by Super Soul. That's how you see that act. It's out of character.
yeah.
So it's inspired by Super Soul. Immediately he felt badly. Just like Maharaj Pariksit immediately felt badly as soon as he did what he did with the sage who was in meditation and he insulted him. He felt badly.
Yeah. Similarly, I was also thinking about sage Durvasha Muni, even after explaining by Lakshmana about how Lord Ram is busy with this activity, not able to wait, just wanted to go
That's
immediately and disturb him.
That's his personality. Everybody knows Dravas's personality. Easily angered, easily pleased.
Sure.
Partial expansion of Lord Shiva. And when his anger goes, it's uncontrollable. Even he can't control it. And he's powerful. I mean, fasted for 1,000 years? Gosh.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. No questions, no discussion. You have something online? Okay, let's go online.
This is from Amara Mataji. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Although these pastimes are transcendental and take place according to Lord's will, but they feel very heart-wrenching and to conditioned souls. Is this our love that is manifesting through our emotions for these personalities, or we are just dwelling on material platform and will then to forget these emotions soon?
The answer, you know the answer. Our position is we're mixed. So those emotions are mixed. There's some portion transcendental, some portion, very human.
So the next question from Nega Agarwal. Maharaj, when Lord and Sita comes to a material world, they experience emotions like pain, sorrow, grief.
Yeah.
Are they covered by Yoga Maya? That's
yeah.
what. That's
Not covered by Yoga Maya. They're exhibiting Yoga Maya. Their pastimes are pastimes of Yoga Maya.
That's why they are able to feel these emotions and do these negative emotions also.
But it's not a negative emotion. I mean, it's a negative emotion. It's not a negative. It's a transcendental emotion. It's a misunderstanding to think that they're experiencing negative emotions. They're experiencing transcendental emotions in the way that we normally think of a negative emotion. It's in the language of Rupa Goswami, it's a type of ecstasy that doesn't, to us, look like a negative emotion, and for them, it's a transcendental ecstasy, and sometimes it goes way up. A really intense transcendental emotion that looks to us like a negative emotion.
So the next question is from Sunil Nair. Hare Krishna Maharaj. I would like to know IQ.
Like to know what?
IQ.
IQ, intelligent quotient.
Yeah.
That's his question?
Is there IQ? If yes, why some people have high IQ and they are using it for material pleasures?
Because of past piety, they get something. They get some opulence, and then they can misuse it. They can properly use it or misuse it. There is such a thing. There's opulences, and that's one of them. And it becomes material if it's used away from Krishna, and it's spiritualized if it's used in relation to Krishna.
So again, there is one question from Amara Mataji. My understanding was that Chaturviga incarnation appeared.
Say it again, slower. My understanding was
Chaturviga incarnation. Chaturviga.
Chaturvyuha. Chaturvyuha. Okay.
Incarnation appear and disappear together.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
So in this case, Lord Lakshman left early. Would you like to comment on this, Maharaj?
It was a Leela. He went to the same place they went to. It was a Leela.
Next question is from...
just like Balaram left shortly before Krishna left. They didn't leave, synchronous. And we had this discussion with Lal Gopal. In Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, the same Chaturvyuha are there. But they didn't appear simultaneously and disappear simultaneously. So it's not a rule. But they're from the same place, the spiritual world. And they come and they perform pastimes and they depart in different ways at different times. And sometimes like this, we just heard. Sometimes not. They're not bound by some rule. Next.
Next is from Uttama Bhaktadas Prabhu. In Valmiki Ramayana, did Lord Ram take the form of Vishnu before ascending back to Vaikuntha?
He's going to answer this question.
If yes, what is the significance as Lord Ram has his own form?
Now, I'm not a scholar of Valmiki Ramayana. But here's one who is, kind of. More than I am in any case.
He just went the way he was, appearing the same way. That's all.
That was what I recall.
Yeah.
Were you with us in the Ayodhya Yatra? We went to the place. At least the person who was guiding us said, this is the place, and there's all kinds of shrines and things where they just entered the river Sarayu, and that was it. Like, there wasn't this other explanation that we read. It's my guess, since it's not from Valmiki Ramayana, it's from some other Ramayana, and he just kind of, sprinkles a little salt and pepper and some other spices in this narration from some other Ramayana source. For whatever the reason, he did like that. You have something? Okay. Okay. But sitting next to you, I thought you were, no, okay. Okay, we're done. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Ki Jai. And tomorrow, everything goes well, we're going to resume with the concluding verses of chapter 14, canto 10, Brahma's prayers, just the concluding portion. And then the day after that, we'll go to chapter 15. Back to Srimad Bhagavatam. You have something you want to add? Okay, go ahead. Just read the one more question. We'll end.
It's from Manjira Venugopalan. Is there mention of Lakshman desiring not to be born as younger brother in future incarnations?
That's just, it's our acharyas speak like that. He was put into so much difficulty. I'm not going to be the younger brother again. So the next time he was the elder brother. But I don't know if that's in scripture or if it's some, perception or understanding or realization of our acharyas or something like that. I don't know of any scriptural statement like that. Okay, Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.